The world we live in is not that safe. Nuclear arms exist solely to deter other countries who also have nuclear arms from trifling with one another. See, today in my speech, I hope to persuade you to join the side of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what I just said means, who supports it, and what the future could look like if policies like disarmament were implemented. So, we're going to start off by talking about what exactly the policy is. So, nuclear disarmament is focused mainly on safety. See, according to the UN's Article 36's official website, disarmament brings peace in two ways. Quote, disarmament mechanisms contribute to the institutionalization of a cooperative security order, a system of collective security. Disarmament institutions can promote multilateralism, uphold the rule of law, and develop and maintain norms for the common good. So essentially, what that means is if disarmament were to take place, industrialized efforts around the globe would more so have a cooperative goal. Everyone would be building towards the betterment of humanity instead of building a better bomb than the other country. Um, and the whole multilateralism mumbo jumbo essentially boils down to if we all work together to maintain collective responsibility over weapons of mass destruction or WMDs, then no one person can be stupid enough to use them, essentially. Um, in addition to this, President Barack Obama introduced in 2009 the Prague Peace Accords, which were a very big step forward for the globe in terms of disarmament. Essentially, it was a giant peace agreement that if you want to be a modern and industrialized nation, you need to contribute to global disarmament. Um, let's see. Before that, the main policy that was in place and was implemented during the Cold War was called MAD, or Mutually Assured Destruction. Essentially, what this boils down to, and I'm getting this information from Britannica's official article on Mutually Assured Destruction. Um, the policy was essentially if you shoot us with a nuke first, well, we already have a whole bunch of pre selected targets for our nukes, and we're going to launch them instantly. Uh, Scorched earth is also another term used for this policy. Essentially, there are no winners, everyone loses. Um, and with this background knowledge of what nuclear disarmament is as a policy and how it's an improvement over what previously stood, I'm going to inform you of who really supports it. So, the main driver for disarmament is the UN, the United Nations, which is a global effort to unionize the whole planet under one flag, even though we all belong to separate countries. So, the only problem with the UN is it's a very tedious process because it involves every country, or just about. And so, surprisingly, the first talks of disarmament took place right after World War II. Right after the first nukes were used, humans realized that we should not be wielding this kind of power all willy nilly, and so there was an agreement to put in a small test ban and restrict what nations could have access to nuclear capable materials. The people who led these discussions were the United States, Great Britain, France, the Soviet Union, China, and even Canada. Um, and like I had mentioned earlier, the United States introduced a very important piece of global legislature, the Prague Peace Accords in 2009. Essentially, it was the first steps to start slowly dismantling, or to put it in a cliche movie terms, everyone put their guns down all at the same time. We're all watching each other. No one's to be untrusted. We're all in this together. Um, Most important part of the bill was to actually amend the weapons test ban from the previous World War II or post World War II meeting, which further banned testing from space, underground, in the ocean, in the air, and on land. Essentially, you cannot test nuclear weapons unless you go into a certain point underground, but that's a weird contingency in the legislature. Um, author Jay Doyle's 2016 article on arms control and the United States Department of the State actually were my sources for this information for this section. And moving forward, I'm going to talk about what the world could look like if a total disarmament and non-proliferation policy were introduced. So there's going to be two main industries that we see or that we would see boom from this. The first would be the pharmaceutical industry, and the second would be the energy industry. So for pharmaceuticals, it's a little mysterious why dismantling nukes would be beneficial for pharmaceuticals until you realize nuclear medicine. See, proton therapy machines, which treat and target specific forms of cancer in hard to reach areas like brain, spinal, facial nasal, internal organ cancer, instead of just blasting the whole area with radiation like traditional chemotherapy does, there's a targeted beam of protons that is actually shot at the tumor, which slowly breaks down the DNA and thus kills the tumor. My grandfather actually worked as a technician to repair these proton therapy machines, so I've heard a lot of information on how the sources function, which a source is, of course, a nuclear capable material. It's giving off radiation, and just how important isolating certain types of sources are for medical applications. Cobalt 60 is a very common source for proton therapy machines, same with cesium 137. The other big area in which disarmament would affect would be the energy sector, and that would be via nuclear energy. See, weapons grade uranium and fuel grade uranium are very close to each other. It's just a slight isotope difference. In fact, refining uranium to create weapons grade uranium makes fuel grade uranium. So, with the dismantling of a bunch of nuclear sources, that's going to create a whole bunch of more fuel. And some facts on nuclear energy: it is cleaner in a greenhouse effect of measuring greenhouse gases per terawatt than coal, natural gas, oil, hydroelectric, geothermal, and even wind. Nuclear sources are more energy dense than any other current means of power production. One small nuclear pellet, which is like an inch tall, is equivalent to 192,000 barrels of oil. Nuclear power is also responsible for fewer deaths than any other really common energy source except for solar, and the difference is zero point zero 0.01 deaths per terawatt of energy generated, which a terawatt is um, a trillion watts of energy. It's a lot of energy. It's ridiculous. The facts about these nuclear energy information has been sourced directly from the United States Department of Energy's website on nuclear medicine or nuclear energy. So, with this flurry of information, we're going to go ahead and recap. So, I've told you what disarmament is. It's a policy to get rid of weapons of mass destruction. I've told you the steps that the world has taken to get rid of these weapons, like the first meeting post World War II and then the Prague Peace Accords in 2009. And I've also informed you of ways that the world can improve via disarmament and non-proliferation. And so, to wrap up and conclude my speech, I'd like to leave you with a thought. What kind of future would you like your children to have? One of prosperity, peace, and cooperation that pushes humanity towards the heavens, maybe even further? Or one of strife, poverty, disease, and war? Nuclear arms only exist in the latter. Thank you.